All right, there is the British and Irish Lions squad that's going to face the First Nations and Pacifica team. The midweek match between Tests 1 and 2. Could it be the final game? No, it will be the final game on tour for many of these players. But I guess the most important question to ask, the most interesting one, and the one which I'd love to get your thoughts on, is who is in contention for the Test series still? Who could play themselves into a Test jersey? Given that the side did quite well with the victory against Australia, or certainly in that first half played the best that they've played on tour, you would imagine that it's going to be largely the same for Andy Farrell. But who can make their way into the Test team? There's some quite interesting selections to get into. So as I say, please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I guess some of the headlines here are there are 9 Scottish players in the 23, an all-Scottish back 3. It is a brilliant time for Scottish backs at the minute. You know, the 10, 12, 13 hasn't happened before for the Lions. Now they've got 11, 14, 15. And 9 as well. So that's 4 Scottish backs. All of the positions that weren't playing at the weekend in the Test side are covered by Scotsmen playing in the backline. It's very, very cool for Scotland, objectively. I've got a separate video coming on some of the call-ups because other guys like Gregor Brown is involved, Ewan Ashman is involved. I have got another video where I want to cover off that particular element of this tour and some of those selections. But I'll separate, I'm not going to get into that now. But it's just really cool for Scotland. Wales, I wonder if Wales fans would kind of be hoping that Jack Morgan wasn't on the team sheet, because it might mean he's more in contention for being involved in the Test series. Jack Morgan is the sole Welshman in the squad, sole Welshman involved in this one, and he's wearing number 6 in what is a dynamite back row, 777 threat, all action. And could one of those guys play themselves onto the bench in the Test? I'll certainly get into that one. Does the fact players are picked in this indicate, and certainly the ones that are starting, does that indicate they will not be involved? Or is it a chance to prove their worth? I don't know what the answer to that one is. I just know that that back row is absolutely class. I would say the players with Test 2 potential in Melbourne this weekend, and I will be at the Melbourne match, absolutely buzzing for that. The series victory could be sealed this weekend. I know they've talked confidently, the Lions, about wanting to go 3-0, but next job is the Wallabies again in Melbourne. I'd say the players in this squad that have genuine Test potential, tell me if you disagree. The guys on the bench that were involved last weekend, so that's Ben Earl, Alex Mitchell, Marcus Smith. Good to see Gary Ringrose back. He's wearing the number 23 jersey. I'd say it's unlikely he'll be involved because the centres and Bundy Aki actually did quite well at the weekend. The starting back line, there's a lot of versatility. So, sorry, let me jump back. The performance of the back 3 for the British and Irish Lions, it was probably the poorest area on the field, maybe even for either team, was how the back 3 functioned for the Lions. And I think we will see changes, or maybe at least one change there. Blair Kinghorn being back in the side, he's 100% in contention, particularly with the versatility he brings. He could be a player that you put on the bench. Although I actually think, for what it's worth, Marcus Smith and Bundy Aki as one sort of combination, because Marcus Smith can cover 15. You've got 10-15. Bundy Aki covers the centres. Hugh Jones can cover the wing. You've got everything covered. I think if Blair Kinghorn comes in on the bench, if not starting, then it might be in combination with Owen Farrell. I think Farrell-Kinghorn gives you the full coverage of the back line. And it might be either Smith-Aki or Farrell with Kinghorn. So that'll be quite an interesting one to watch as well. I'd say Jamie George has an very outside chance. I don't expect Andy Farrell would change Rona Kelleher, but Kelleher wasn't brilliant when he came on. Ben White has a chance, but again, Alex Mitchell didn't get a lot of time, so I don't think he really played himself out of a spot, but arguably Ben White could play himself in. But I think the most interesting one to me is what the consequence of Joe McCarthy potential knock. If Joe McCarthy is not fit to play, and that is what the consensus seems to be at the minute, then you would imagine Ollie Chesham's going to start at second row in place of Joe McCarthy, and then a player comes in on the bench. Now, the logical thing would just be to bring in Cummings and Ryan, and the two of them are starting together in the second row. So big game for those two. Massive game for those two fellas. But potentially, because Tyg Burn can slot in at the second row, it does also leave a potential spot for Morgan, Van der Fleer and Pollock. And that, I think, is possibly the most interesting, most consequential element of this game. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 will all go into this game if Joe McCarthy is out thinking they could be the person that is on the bench. And that's huge. You hope, and I fully expect, because these are, top class pros, they're not going to go out and play a game for themselves, and they will have the best chance of succeeding if they play their role within the team and within the system. But it has to be competitive, doesn't it? The other one which I haven't mentioned is Mac Hansen, who is not involved in this game. And that could be, this is where you wonder whether being involved in this match means you're less likely to be picked. Mac Hansen not being involved, does that mean he is likely to be picked? Or does it mean he's just injured? With the fact Tommy Freeman did not play well, James Lowe had a bit of a howler, to be honest, and Hugo Keenan was not great either. There's an opportunity there for Mac Hansen if he is fit and well. And he's been playing really well on tour. I do wonder, though, looking at the names that are there, mind you, it's a 5-3 split with Smith and Ringrose. I was just thinking if Mac Hansen was going to be considered for the weekend, might he have been put on the bench for this one? But I actually think it's more likely Hansen will be involved this weekend. Maybe in place of Freeman or Lowe. And that would be a justifiable selection given the performances. So yeah, that's a really, really interesting call. And I haven't even mentioned yet, Owen Farrell is skipper for this one. So congrats to him. Like I say, I'm not going to delve into on this video the merits of the selection of guys like Ewan Ashman, Rory Sutherland, Gregor Brown, who are all on the bench. I do have an opinion on that, which I'm going to share in a separate video. But let me focus on the here and now. And that is the First Nation and Pacifica team that's going to take to the field. And do you know what? There's lots and lots of points to prove in that team. Just looking at Paenga Amosa, the hooker, left out of the Wallabies squad. And he was very recently, starting or off the bench at hooker. Taniela Tupu seems to be out of favour. Now, because he's such a unique character and he's, a massive line-denting frame that the Wallabies desperately needed at the weekend, I think I would have involved him, to be honest. Darcy Swain will feel like he's been hard done by. Salakai Lotto was giving it the old call me to Joe Schmidt when he played previously for that AUNZ team. And he was going around taking names, and really, he's got another point to prove. It doesn't look like it's going to get him into the Wallabies side, but they need some kind of heft. If they're not going to have Valentini, if they're not going to have Skelton, Salakai Lotto can do that job a little bit. Uru, a Wallaby international. Kurtley Beale, skipper at fly half. Has he still got it? Tom Liner had a bit of a horror show of a debut at 10 for the Wallabies. Daungunu, again, quite a physical specimen. Overlooked by the Wallabies, Feketi, and there are others. So it's actually a pretty handy team. Again, it feels like you're going to have the same issue that AUNZ had. Great team on paper, but throwing players together, a bunch of individuals is never going to beat a cohesive team. So I think this is only going one way. But we will see. Bring it on. Let me know what you think about selection for Test 2. And I'll see you on the next video.